Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm Tom Shellcross. With me as always is Mark Ainley. Mark, it's summer. It feels good to be out. Have you been going to any of these networking events or any of these meetups yet?
I have not, but you know what gets me excited? Just looking at some of the pictures of them, like to see people in person. Like I'm looking forward to it. So I'm going to one, I think it's next week. So I am definitely looking forward to that. And then, we have coming up, you're doing a little event that you're having, just kind of a private event. And then we have that summer soiree for MBOA, which I'm looking forward to. Straight Up Chicago Investor is going to be a sponsor for. And then Tom, I think we have to throw some sort of a party. Maybe I was thinking we get all of our guests together as the main, and they all have a +1. So we could have a pretty cool, talk about a power networking event that could be. So I'm thinking that's something we should try organizing for the summer.
I think we do that. I also think we do we do one for the listeners too, right? We do like a big event.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. So in that, the guests plus the +1, I was thinking maybe +1 is the listeners that could come. So that was kind of my mindset, but either way, having a good event outside and with a contingent backup plan, it will be awesome.
Yeah, man, we're back. We're open.
Yes. Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited to get out there and just network with people again. Don't get me wrong. It's been happening while we've been called the last year and a half, but I think it's just so different. Shaking hands. I'm back to shaking hands again. So I don't know, that's been something that, we're in July right now, and I've been really just shaking hands for about 45 days now. And it feels good to shake hands again.
I like just making it real confusing. If someone comes to me with a handshake, I give the fist bump and vice versa. Just make it as awkward as possible.
No. I like when someone is like uncomfortable about it. So you pull them for the hug.
Yeah, go all in. So, all right. Well, cool. What do we got for our housing provider tip of the week here?
You know what? I want to bring up a point that is just something that I think in general business, again, if you're a landlord, you own a property, you own a business. But I think, we're looking at our customer service platform and how we communicate. It's so easy to be so casual these days, just sending a thumbs up or a cool or that, and it might be a new client that doesn't know you. So keeping that the personality and the professionalism as whether it be a self-managing landlord or when you're doing deals, like keep that in mind. I know it's easy to just throw these texts back and forth and these emails back and forth, but try to be professional because you are representing yourself, you're representing your team, and you're representing just your whole network when you're communicating with people. So tenants, it's really easy just to be shooting a tenant back, but you know what? It's really easy also to say, thank you. Let me know if there's anything else you need versus just cool. I'll talk to you later. So just kind of taking that step further in your customer experience for your tenants or for people you're doing deals with, I think is a huge point that is really easy to overlook in this casual world. The other thing that's got real casual, which I'm not going to say you have to improve on, is dress code. Like dress code, just since I started business in 2003, we're down and down. We would never be with an attorney 15 years ago without a tie on a call like this. We'd never be on a recording either, but things are just changing. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one more thing, going back to just the level of communication, when there's something, when there's something at fault, hey, so, something breaks or whatever, and you're going to go fix it. It goes without saying that you empathize with them. Like, hey, I understand the situation sucks. We're fixing it. But say that. They can't read your mind and they can't understand that you have good intentions. So just articulate that, right? Like, hey, we understand this sucks. It's on us. We're taking care of it. Boom. Like that little bit of just making it crystal clear, because they're not going to interpret that. They have no idea if you're sitting there going, I may or may not do this. Like, let them know your intentions. And
text and emails too. That people, heck, I get this with my wife. She reads the text the way she wants to read it. And it's important that you make sure you're clear on your communication. Heck, even send some videos from time to time on the text videos.
Yeah. Love it. So let's jump in.
So we have an awesome guest today. I would call him one of the top networkers here in Chicago, let alone Chicago real estate. Our guest today is formerly village attorney for many communities in Will County. So we have somebody that is bringing knowledge really in the Will County area, in addition to the rest of the Chicago that we typically have. He has had experience working in land, big commercial, zoning, development, and you might have seen him on multiple different forums as a speaker. He's represented thousands of property investors in a wide amount of businesses, and various from the mom and pop all the way up to large corporate business. This year, he'll close more REO and HUD properties than any other attorney in the state of Illinois on behalf of investors. He counts among his clients hedge funds, private equity groups, family offices, as well as smaller investors. He also heads up banking practice group at Castle Law that assists banks and servicers in negotiation and preparation of documents. So he's got a breadth of experience, a breadth of services. I want to welcome Gary Davidson to our show today. Gary, welcome. Is there anything I left out? Anything that we sold you short on?
Mark, I actually am a PBR drinker. I like to drink PBR. So I am from the South Side. So even though I represent a lot of hedge funds, a lot of these North Shore people, at my heart, I'm from the South Side. So I do have a pair of PBR golf pants, and I like to drink PBR. Hey, all right.
I'm a Chicago fan. I do. Tom might not like this type of comment, but I saw this White Sox hat and I had to get it. I got it for Father's Day, but it's one of my favorite hats right now.
I do like that. Big Cubs fan, but I do like that logo.
Mark.
What's that?
I said you're losing your hair early, so you need to wear a hat. Otherwise,
yep. If I wear it backwards, I still look young. It's what my kids say. But you know what? One of the things that intrigues me about you, we've only known each other for a short time. We know a lot of the same people in the same circles, and you might be referencing some of them here today on the show. But you're a networker, man, and there's not many attorneys or people that have your breadth of experience that are still on a day-to-day hustle trying to add value to other people. Kind of tell us, give us a little spiel on kind of what your opinion is on building a team and relationships and so forth, and how it's worked for you.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, my soapbox on it is, look, my father was an assembly line worker at Caterpillar. My mother was a secretary. First generation went to college. So it doesn't require much to make me happy. And I think for people to be successful, they need to understand what their why is. And inherently, I'm a connector. So what lights me up and pays me well at the same time is having success through others. I truly get charged. I get a lot of energy by seeing people grow and scale their business. And it just so happens that also helps me pay my bills. It also helps my wife be able to have all of the Amazon packages arrive at the front door. And so for me, one of the things that I think oftentimes in our industry, and when I say our industry, what I mean is real estate, right? Most of the people that are going to be listening to your show, that's primarily 98% of what I do is real estate. Have a very, very small mindset. And, I like talking about, if you want to get to that next level, you really need to have that go-giver mentality that you and I talked about before the show. There's a great book that people should pick up and read called The Go-Giver. And it's really the difference between building partnerships and seeking out vendors. So it's very, very simple and easy to think about property management and what you do as a vendor-vendee relationship. For attorneys, it's very, very easy for people to think about, this guy charges $600 for a closing, this guy charges $500. But for the most successful people that I see, for the people that I work with, like your Frank Montrose, your Jared Kotz, your Ryan Smiths, these are the guys that refer me their business. We focus on partnerships and we reject the term vendor because we focus on others and helping people grow their business. So shifting that mindset, I think, is absolutely critical to providing that excessive, over-the-top value, not always commoditizing everything, but realizing that we can grow and I'll end with this because I don't want to start to get like Frank Montrose, who just totally takes over your entire show. But literally every day, every single day, I have 10 key relationships that I'm 48, so I still handwrite it on a piece of paper. And I focus in time block on driving business to those 10 key relationships because those people can help me far more than if I just spent every single day acting in a very self-serving fashion. number one mistake that I think investors make, whether they go and pay, a guru or whether they do it on their own, is just trying to make everything like a vendor-vendee relationship.
So Frank, it's true. Frank's show was very one-sided, and that was episode 64. But I think, Tom, it was our top 3 as far as most viewed shows. So I'll take that either way. But Gary, so in a daily basis, you're applying this. You have your top 10 core list. What are some things that you listen for in trying to be that connector? Like what are some ways, kind of hacks or tricks that really makes you the person that you are?
I really think it has to do with using your ears and trying to find out what is the one thing. There's a great book by Gary Keller, right? The one thing. What's the one thing such that if we can do it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? So if I can identify that for you, I think, Mark, in our first conversation, I think I actually asked that question about a month ago. What's the one thing that I can do to help you get to the next level that you need to get to? Because if I can provide that one thing, then, and I don't know if we've actually even physically been in the same room together, but if I could provide that one thing, you're sitting there scratching your head thinking, man, Davidson got me connected with, this guy in California that I needed to know in San Francisco because I was looking for somebody to refer. I've got a guy that's got a portfolio of properties out there, whatever that one thing is. So focusing on others and identifying what can you do to help them move the needle, to break down some of the barriers. I don't know if you guys manage a lot of properties in South Cook County, but I do a ton because those are properties that cash flow. South Holland, let me give you an example. South Holland just maybe in the last year created a restriction on rentals, right? And such that all these people that are buying properties can no longer rent them because they have a cap or restriction, much like the homeowners associations have done. And one of the things that I do, it's not transactional. It's like, okay, now that this restriction is in place, what can we do? What kind of value can we provide to somebody who I meet that will allow them to continue to do their business? So in South Holland, I came up with the concept that we were going to convert all of these leases to contract for deeds, right? Because even in today's 2020 United States of America, you still, 2 private parties have the ability to contract to buy and sell real estate. So a contract for deed, otherwise known as an installment sale contract, is a tenant who now becomes a buyer. And the beautiful thing about that contract for deed is that in the event that the tenant doesn't fulfill the terms, the person who's selling it still owns it. The other beautiful thing about it is South Holland can no longer regulate it. So it's a good way to get around the no rental restrictions. It's a good way to get around the HOAs that have put these restrictions so that we can put our clients in a position such that we're not in the mass of everyone else who's all trying to do the exact same thing. Now my clients can go to the no rental communities where no other investors are buying, and they can use that strategy. So focusing on others, finding out what their problems are, identifying what the problems are in the industry, and figuring out ways to solve them, that's some of the components to help create that extra added excessive value to help others.
Gary, that's awesome. I'm just going to hit on the go giver one more time. Providing that tremendous value to someone else. I think one of the things that was implied there, but not explicitly stated, then don't keep score. It's not that Mark owes me one then. That stuff, it will come back. Just worry about, can I provide tremendous value to others? And you're obviously someone who's very experienced and can do that. And even at some scale, on a modest scale, I have newbies who can ask me a question. I can help them. I can give them a referral or tell them about a job I did. But what about that someone who's just getting started right now? They're saying, you know what, Gary, that's all great. I have that attitude. I can go provide tremendous value to someone, but I'm new. I'm 25. I'm just looking to get started. how could they embrace this? Like, what value can they look to provide? What are some tactical things they can look to do to, get started and kind of adapt that mindset?
Well, for a new investor, the first thing that you have to do, Tom, is investors, and you guys know this better than anyone, run 1 million miles per hour in no particular direction. So for a new investor, the first thing you have to do is you have to establish a clear picture. You have to establish a clearly defined goal. You can't hit a target you can't see, and you can't arrive at a destination if you don't know where it is. So every investor that calls me that's a new investor says, I want to wholesale, I want to buy multifamily, I want to do flips, I want to have a rental portfolio, I want to create a fund, and we all want to have that perfect life, but we have to write down our goals. If somebody says, I want, we think we're making progress by saying, I'm going to own 20 properties by the end of the year. Well, we got to do some reverse engineering on that. How many offers do we have to make? How many appointments do we have to go on? We have, this is just for life. This is our life we're talking about. So, it's got to be important. You have to say, okay, you have to commit to, if I'm going to own 20 properties as rental properties, that means that I have to put in 100 offers, 200 offers. So those are the sorts of things for a new investor that you're going to be able to build consistency and momentum by creating that clearly defined picture and then simply building your own network. Because, my network is Ryan Smith. My network is Frank Montreux. My network is the Cadillas family. A new investor, that's not where you're going to start. You can't get there, but you can build a smaller network that'll be effective and grow with those people.
Yeah, no, you hit it spot on there. For the younger people, for me, I always found a way, if you talk to enough people and ask enough questions, you find what other people can add value for other people. And even if I'm an inexperienced investor, I could still connect those people. If I know a guy does really good hardwood floors, I could still connect another investor I'm talking to that might have 3 units he's got to do hardwood floors on. So that's one of the ways. But Gary, it's huge as far as what you said. This is a great episode so far.
Well, Mark, I just want to mention, because you were talking about at the beginning about building your team and whatnot. And I just had this happen in my parking lot. I met with this parking lot guy, and there's a very good friend of mine. His name's Jeff Cole. And Jeff has that go-giver mentality, just like you do and just like I do. Jeff responded to this guy who's a parking lot paver, right? Jeff owns a restoration company. He goes out, and this guy's so impressed. Jeff takes good care of him. So Jeff then refers him to do my parking lot. Well, when this guy gets here, what this guy doesn't know, this just happened 20 minutes ago. I said, hey, you might not know this because Jeff is a young guy. He's super hard, serial entrepreneur, doesn't come across as flashy. But Jeff did something very, very smart. Jeff married an extremely rich girl whose father is the largest owner of property in Chicago. And you know what? Jeff's wife's grandfather owns all of the parking lots in the city of Chicago. I said, so when you get done with my parking lot, you need to call Jeff back and thank him for referring it over to me, and then say, hey, Gary mentioned that your grandpa owns all the parking lots in the city. So that's the kind of thing that all I'm saying is for small investors. Here's a guy who is a parking lot restriper and paver, and who's now probably going to be resurfacing all the parking lots around the United Center just because there was somebody that had that small ability to make those connections. So it's the seeds that we sow today that are reaped tomorrow. We talk about starting to go to all these different investor meetups and going to these groups. And as investors, we can get very, very discouraged. When I started as a lawyer 23 years ago, you go to all these meetings and you think, man, this really sucks. I haven't gotten anything out of it. And so many people give up too quickly because it's the extra effort with consistency, that little extra effort repeated time over time that leads to massive results. You don't call Mark Ainley up, have one conversation, and expect tomorrow, bada bing, bada boom, money just starts pouring in from the sky. It's meeting Mark 6, 10, 15, 20 times. So the things that you do today are going to be paying off tomorrow. So that's the one thing. Investors, new investors, you can't get discouraged. You just got to keep doing the work, keep putting in the time. It's like going to work out, putting in the reps. Eventually it's going to show up.
Awesome. All right, cool. We'll roll on here. So, you in your bio, you have so much you've done. You've worked in big commercial developments. I think you mentioned Meyer, Bass Pro Shops, some of the bigger projects you've worked on. Not many people go from big corporate commercial real estate to kind of what you work on now. Tell us kind of why you did that and what that transformation was for you.
So I did it because I had to. We are at the exact same point in time today that we were in 2005 and 2006. 2005 and 2006, I was a young lawyer. I'd been a lawyer for 5 or 6 years. I was making money hand over fist. I was arrogant. I was cocky. I was trading time for dollars. I was dealing with big box retail. And if anybody knows commercial real estate agents, commercial lawyers, anybody in the commercial industry, we think that residential people are lower forms of humanity. We are far higher on the IQ. We know much more about everything. We're smart. We're at big law firms. We're at big real estate brokerages. But you know what? The market collapsed, and I was sitting there thinking, holy shit, what am I going to do? And through just dumb luck, nothing else. I didn't seek out to be involved in residential. I had a few clients who started to buy distressed assets. And then I realized something. Residential real estate is something that you can scale. It's something that I could do 100 closings in a day at X dollars a crack. And I could throw away my time cards. I don't, because how much can you bill? $400, $500, $600 an hour? At some point it stops, right? And every single day when 5 o'clock hits, 10 o'clock hits, the minute you stop billing time, that's when you have no residual income. You think you own your own business, but you own your own job, right? But residential real estate allows us to create passive income. And for an attorney, we can scale that business out as well. So this is what I learned is I fell into that and really developed a passion to help other people be able to create that life worth living, that legacy worth leaving, and that career worth having, and most importantly, that business worth owning.
So it sounds like, again, back to kind of the relationships that you're able to build on that shift of being in, call it big commercial development to the I'd say mom and pop investor. So what else? Is there anything else that you really took from that high commercial development and brought down to what you practice today? Absolutely.
So, we all hear the terms assignments and double closings and wholesaling. And a lot of that actually is demonized. And up until, a year and a half ago when they changed the Illinois Brokerage Act, Illinois was the wild, wild west. There was no regulation of this stuff. And people sometimes demonize this, but really on the commercial side, this is what we've been doing for eons. At the commercial level, we call it trading out of assets. On the residential side, we call it wholesaling. But contracts being bought and sold on the commercial side, it happens all the time. So what I was able to do is I was able to take that very, very high level, that very, very sophisticated word by word analysis of every document and bring that down and break it down to the simple residential real estate transaction. Because a lot of people are like, hey, I want to get started in real estate. I want to wholesale. Well, wholesaling is probably one of the most sophisticated things that you could possibly do. And, you know, if there's 100 wholesalers in Chicago, and we all know there's more than that, but maybe 2 or 3 out of 100 could find their, what do they call it, their proverbial rear with both hands. You know, very few wholesalers know what they're doing. And so I've broken this down. I've all got the forms, the contracts to make it easy, because most of the stuff that's floating out there is garbage, and these transactions don't close because we haven't got the right stuff in place to make it smooth, efficient, and easy. It's basic blocking and tackling.
Okay, so you have exposure to a lot of newbie investors. You know, I know you work with Andrew Holmes Group. You work with a bunch of other groups and early on investors buying their first, second, third properties. And I think you're even a newer investor up until maybe your 7th or 8th, because I think I know I see a lot of people that their mistakes happen on the 3rd and 4th deal because they don't pay as much attention as they did on the 1st and 2nd deal, and they let these things kind of slip through and mistakes happen. But give us maybe a couple of mistakes that you see happen that our listeners can avoid, that you recommend.
So as it relates to wholesaling, Mark, number one mistake that wholesalers make is when you are signing the contract with the original seller, you must control the title. Let me peel back the onion on that very quickly. In Illinois, under the Illinois Title Insurance Act, the party who's responsible for paying for title has the ability to order title. More importantly, how do lawyers make money on title insurance? Let's pull back the curtains here. Most attorneys, most of the money they make in a real estate transaction is a result of getting paid by the title company. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if we take the concept that the party who's responsible for ordering title and paying for title has the ability to get paid, how do you get the property from A to B and then B to C, the end buyer, if you're not controlling that title? Because if the seller is responsible for paying for title, then that seller's attorney is going to want to order the title, because that's how we make money. So oftentimes we see contracts where it says that the end buyer is going to be required to pay for title, or that the seller is going to be required to pay for title. The B party, that middle party, that wholesaler, you must control the transaction in order to control your variables. That's as simple as that.
Gary, I'll chime in real quick. Even if you're not wholesaling, let's say you're flipping a property, it's taking Cook County so long to record now. If you're direct with the seller on the front end, you still want to control that. And then, because then when you go to sell, you can go to the same title company you bought from and make everything a lot smoother. You can control where escrow is at. So this, I just want to make the point, this doesn't just apply to wholesaling. Great points, but it's also broader than that, and it can just make life a lot easier.
And Tom, that's an excellent point, because on every REO deal that I do with Ryan Smith, you know, these title companies, they're in India, they're in, you know, Atlanta, Georgia. And what happens is, if you're buying and flipping a property and that deed doesn't get recorded, you can't sell it. And by the way, there's Fannie Mae seasoning restrictions where we have to own these properties and have them recorded for 90 days. And if that doesn't take place and it takes forever to record the deed, then you're having to explain it to the lender and explain all that. If you are closing with your title company, and let's say your title company is Chicago Title or Fidelity Title, they're going to automatically, whether they record that deed or not, they're going to insure your transaction because they've got the deed. So Tom, great point. You're going to want to control that. We've got all the forms for that. The second thing that I would say is, again, this is all about following the money. If you're going to try to get a property from Ryan Smith, one of the things that you might consider is seeking out another broker in Ryan's a company to act as your agent, so that the same brokerage is earning both sides of that commission. Because how are they going to be incentivized? They're going to be more incentivized to sell you that property if they're earning both sides of that commission. Now, Ryan needs to get the highest and best. Ryan's got the highest integrity out there of anyone. But it's obviously you're going to have that competitive inside advantage when you're working with that listing agent. So very, very good. Unless you have somebody like a Frank Montreux, right? Because Frank knows everybody. And so he's going to have that edge as well. So that would be another thing. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but oftentimes working with a listing agent can provide you with a very, very competitive advantage there.
Let me reiterate that in a different way. So if you see a property on Redfin and it's listed by Ryan or just whoever it might be listed by, asking them to put someone from their office in place to represent you. Now, you might be working with a real estate agent already. I know that was one of the ways we got deals is we went right to the listing agent. We said that you could represent us, or we could represent ourselves, and you get full side of the deal, and it gives some incentive to make sure that they get the deal done while staying within ethical bounds. Now, I've done it. I've seen people do it, and I've recommended doing this where if you're working with a real estate agent, then you might even have your real estate agent do it on behalf of you, and then you pay your real estate agent out of pocket, just kind of build it into your cost. So getting the deal done at list price right now versus having to get it offer, but dealing with a bunch of multiple offers and paying $5 or $10 over, you're better off buying at list and paying your own agent a couple grand while working with the listing broker as kind of a little kind of hack there to get the deal.
And I guess. And the third thing, and this is in no particular order, and it's, I guess, similar to the second thing is we see this all the time. Frank knows all the wholesalers. People bring Frank the deal first. He gets last look at a lot of these things. And, real estate investors, the first thing they do is they run out and get their real estate license. And God bless you, you should. There's a lot of reasons to have your real estate license and have it in your back pocket. But if Frank is bringing you a deal, use some common sense, and you're going to list that property with Frank on the back end. Because if you think you're saving money, most investors step over dollar bills, $100 bills to pick up pennies, right? I mean, how many times do you think somebody like Frank Montreux is going to sell you a property if he gives you a great deal and then you go ahead and list it yourself? So you're losing thousands, tens of thousands of dollars by acting in that very, very self-serving way. So it's all about, again, building those partnerships and following what incentivizes people and building those relationships and just doing the right thing, doing right by other people. And Tom, as you said, the key to this whole thing is give without any expectation of return. Give without any expectation of return. Because if this is a quid pro quo, all bets are off. That's not a go-giver mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, we see it all the time on Bigger Pockets. There's the guy who's putting something out there just to put his or her name out there, right? And then there's the person who's genuinely trying to answer questions and try to help, right? Like it's also very easy to see through that, I feel. People pick up on that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's and that's one of the things, like, I actually, Mark, you probably don't know this, or maybe you do. I reached out to Jared because I said, man, I got to meet this Mark Ainley guy because I kept hearing about all of the selfless things that you do to help other people. Just had Jason Marcodes over at my house bass fishing the other day, and he's talking, oh man, this Mark Ainley guy, he's a great guy. I'm like, I got to meet this guy. He's just like me. So those are the sorts of things that sometimes, I'm sure you and Tom do this sometimes. Sometimes you hit yourself in the head saying, gee, should I be this way? Should I be so selfless? But you really can't count the value of those things because you don't really get that feedback oftentimes. You don't know that you have people out there that are proselytizing and saying, man, this guy has done so much for me and asked for nothing in return.
I appreciate the compliment there. And
Mark's blushing.
I don't want to overlook the fact that you invite people over to fish at your house. That's pretty cool in itself. Like, I just want to make sure we're pointing out how cool that is.
Jason can't fish worth a shit, but.
So, Gary, great answers there. Similar question around mistakes. What are some mistakes you see investors make when they're picking out an attorney to represent them?
So I hate to continue on this theme, but lawyers have become commoditized. And one of the things the question I get mostly is, how much do you charge? And that's a totally valid and important question. Certainly, we have to be cognizant of our bottom line, especially right now. I mean, these deals are super tight. Very, very few and far between of finding good assets that are good to buy. But the first thing is, basically doing it as a commodity. How much are you going to charge me for title? How much are you going to charge me for an attorney fee? Because just this morning, I represent the guy that owns all the Blueberry Hills in the Chicagoland area, buying a ton of properties. I pulled off the title because they were closing with Renovo. I happen to know Kevin Werner, who's the owner of Renovo, and all the guys over there. And I know that Renovo doesn't require a 24-month chain of title. I know that Renovo doesn't require a location note endorsement. I also know that the title companies pre-bill these things. Chain of title is $250. A location note endorsement is $195. Tom, I would bet you 90% of the attorneys don't even know to ask those questions, let alone know whether or not the lender knows how to pull those off. So again, we don't know what we don't know. And so I charge, his name's George Nicolaopoulos. I charge him $600 for a closing. There's attorneys that will do closings for $400. But this morning I saved him $400 just in title expenses. So those are the sorts of things that I think people need to be asking their attorney. How many transactions did you close in 2020? How much staff do you have? Because I'm not a really smart guy. I have 6 paralegals. I have when Pierce and Associates folded, I hired their main paralegal. I hired closers from title companies. So I have staff that are working on these files every single day to get that transaction from point A to point B so that you're not waiting for the attorney to respond. These things are getting cycled through and we're turning our customer through the turnstile. Because if my client misses a closing date when you're selling a property, if you miss a closing date by 10 days, we in the industry say, well, what's the big deal? It was only 10 days. You know how I look at it? I look at it as 10 days of taxes, 10 days of insurance, 10 days of missed opportunity costs. How many times has my investor needed that money to buy another asset? So all of those things are extremely important. And if you have to wait because the attorney happens to be going to divorce court or the attorney happens to be doing someone's will and they just don't have time to react and be nimble, that costs you as an investor money. So I found my one thing. I found my Gary Keller Williams one thing. Every single day, all I do is real estate and focus on helping my clients grow and scale their business.
Yeah, Gary, that great answer. And I couldn't agree more. Like the simplest things, figuring out the tax proration that you're not getting ripped off there, figuring out this title overcharge. Like there's just so many little couple $100 things here and there. And then there's the big, oh crap, hey, we had a contingency on zoning cert. So even though we thought this was a 4 and it's coming back as a 3 the day before closing, you got an out. Your $20K earnest, you're good to collect that. There's just
rent prorations, senior freeze and senior discount tax exemptions, moves the needle thousands of dollars.
Yeah, the list goes on and on. There's just so much there. And also, if you're going to do this as a business, as Mark has alluded to several times, like this is a small business, the ability to know that you're going to close, as you mentioned, everything you just said was accurate. There's also, I'll say this from the investor side, there's the peace of mind of we're closing the 15th. Cool. I know I'm closing the 15th unless the other side F's up. And even if they do, my guy's going to come in there and and raise hell to make sure we're getting towards that date.
Yeah, these are, we have staff meetings and I say, ladies, these aren't goals. These aren't aspirations. This isn't some Obama strategy of hope. This is real, people. We need to hit this date. We need to hit this date for the buyer. We need to hit this date for the seller because we have to deliver a consistent product consistently.
Yeah, the absolute right way to think about that. Couldn't agree more on that.
Awesome. All right. What a great episode. Lots of good information here. You ready for a wrap up?
Let's do it.
All right. So what is your competitive advantage? How have you been able to do this while so many others wish they could provide the services like you provide?
Passion. I live this, I breathe this, I grind. For people who want to get involved in real estate, if you think this is easy, then you might want to get a job at Baskin-Robbins because it is every single day being committed to this. Every single day, it is a grind. And if you want to be better than the rest, here's the simple answer. You have to work harder than the rest.
Nice.
Love it. We referenced Roselle before, but one of the Eric Workman quotes, real estate is a full contact sport. Like there's no way around it. You can talk about passive income and all you want, but at the end of the day, it's a full contact sport. Gary, what's one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first property here in Chicago?
If you think attorneys are bad, wait till you meet contractors. Thank God for contractors, because if there weren't contractors in this world, attorneys would have the worst reputation. So you need to, again, running an effective business, you have to control your variables and don't take your eye off the ball. Get yourself a reputable contractor, because that will be the first place where you're going to be standing in line at Peter Francis Geraci filing bankruptcy if you don't get yourself a contractor that is honest and reputable. And it's like finding a leprechaun, by the way.
I'm so pumped we finally get to reference Peter Francis Geraci. Put him in the show notes. Took us 70-something episodes.
That's awesome. All right. Besides fishing in your backyard, what do you do for fun?
Well, I am a part-time, non-compensated Uber driver for my son, who is a lacrosse and hockey player. So I travel all over the United States, aspiring for him to play Division III hockey and lacrosse at some East Coast school. So in the last 5 or 6 weeks, I've been to New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. I'm leaving for Washington, D.C. on Friday, and I will be going to San Jose later this month for a lacrosse tournament. I wouldn't change anything because these kids grow up too fast for people who are young parents. I will tell you that one of the mistakes I made, I don't know if this is an upcoming question, but one of the mistakes that I made was that because I'm such a type A person, I would walk in at the end of the day and I would be on my phone, and my little daughter would come up to me and grab my leg and want to show me some picture that she had colored. And I said, I'm on the phone. And you know what? I'm trying to make up for lost time, because you know what? I would throw all of the money away that I ever made to just be able to have my daughter sit in my lap for one more minute, but she's now 17. So for you young investors, work-life balance is extremely important. As much as I talk about the grind, take time for your family.
God, I know what I'm going to do after this, after we're done recording.
It's so good. I remember seeing there's a meme like a year or two old, but it was, as a parent, you're complaining about driving everywhere. And one day you'll wake up and realize that was the last practice I ever drove to.
Yep.
Right. Like, and it's, that's sad.
It is.
Gary, you've referenced the Go-Giver. What is, you gotta give us a different answer here. What is a good book, podcast, or self-development activity that you would recommend to our listeners?
I like in the morning to do words of affirmation to myself and to focus on just stating positive things. When you wake up in the morning, if the first thing you do is hit the snooze button, you've set the rest of your day for failure, right? Because you've already conceded. You've already said, you know what? I'm not going to get up. You are a failure right out of the gate, right when your alarm went off. Like, what are you doing hitting your snooze button? So I like to get up and do some words of affirmation and talk about gratitude, because one of the things, and I like to talk about my past, even though I'm not that old, I'm 48, but one of the things that I did, because my dad was a drill instructor in the Marine Corps, is I was very hard on people in the office. So now I like to do expressions of gratitude, because my father used to throw around compliments like manhole covers. So I like to do statements of gratitude. I'll send emails in the morning just saying, hey, Mark, I really appreciate the fact that you had me on your podcast yesterday. I think, in today's United States of America, with everybody hating on each other and, everything's so polarized, it's not telling somebody that you appreciate them and you care about them and that you appreciate what they've done. There's some value in that. So I try to do that each morning.
Nice. Nice. Besides yourself, name one person in your local network that you would highly recommend to other investors as a quality resource. And you can't use Ryan, you can't use Jared, and you can't use Frank Montrow.
Or Mark.
Today.
Or Mark.
Or Mark.
Let's see. Quality person. So we've got let me give the name of my good friend from Homebridge Financial, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, who is a mortgage broker. So the reason I'm giving his name is because, again, business is about controlling our variables. So we hire a good contractor, we hire a good lawyer, we do a good rehab, we put the property on the market. But why, as an investor, aren't we trying to control the end product? Because then it's like, all of a sudden we've gotten to the 50-yard line and we throw up the Hail Mary pass and say, Jesus, I hope that this mortgage broker approves the loan and my property closes. What if we did this? What if we said, we will provide you with a closing cost credit that you need of $5,000, provided that you use our preferred lender. And a guy like 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is very, very consistent, does a great job, does 203K loans for investors. He's got an investor product where you can get an investor loan, but it's portfolioed with banks. So you're talking about lower interest rates than sometimes your hard money lenders. Once you're below those 10, once you get above the 10 properties, then you have to go to your hard money lenders, your conventional brick and mortar banks. But 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 with Homebridge Financial, great guy. He's an investor himself. He's involved with Chicago REIA. He knows the game and a great resource for investors.
Awesome. Gary, you have provided a ton of value to our listeners. How can they learn more about you? And is there any way they can provide value to you?
My website is www.castlelaw.com. My cell phone is 815-351-0408.
People do listen to this show, Gary.
It doesn't, you know what? My wife tells me that I answer my cell phone for every single person in the continental United States except for her.
Ah.
And I said, well, as soon as you start paying me, wife, I will start answering your call. But as of yet, you're not paying me. So that of course doesn't go over very well. But
I get the same feedback.
more than welcome to use my cell phone, 815-351-0408. Questions are free. Answers sometimes cost money. But no, I do like helping people. So if they feel like I can connect them with someone, if they feel like I can answer a question, I'm glad to do that. I ask that people try not to take advantage of me, but I am pretty liberal, small L, in helping other people. At this point in my career, I like to work with people that I like, and I'm selective on the clients I take because I only want to take clients that have the same sort of mindset that I have, which is one that helps others. If they're just a unilateral taker, I have no problem kicking people to the curb.
Nice.
Love it. Good stuff. So we had to do a quick pivot here. We referenced PBR at the beginning of the show. And so I quickly pulled up our Chicago facts and have a PBR spin to it here. All right. So Gary, you get a chance to answer this as well. So the Chicago fact, it's tied to the World's Columbian Exposition. That's actually where they won awards before that. That's actually where they got a physical blue ribbon. And this is on the internet, so it must be true. What year did Chicago host the World Columbian Exposition? And my clue is it's to celebrate 400 years of Columbus coming over.
So that would be 1892.
1893.
You're correct that it was 1492, but they didn't do the fair till a year after. So it's 1893.
Oh,
you guys are both kind of right. And then I didn't know this, but they were actually putting ribbons on the bottles, and they didn't pause that until World War I caused a silk shortage.
Yep.
Tom, real quick on the PBR thing, because this is my favorite beer. A lot of my friends tell me that, the reason that PBR got the blue ribbon was because it was the only beer manufactured then.
Could be true. We could find that on the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Awesome. Gary, awesome show today. For those of you listening, I forgot to tag Tom on this episode. So we kind of did this episode on the fly and I thought it turned out pretty good. I had to call up Tom saying, hey, what are you doing for the next hour? And he dropped everything he was doing, rescheduled some calls. So Tom, I apologize and thank you publicly for dealing with my mishap there. So, but everyone listening, please, before you hang up, share us with a friend, share us with multiple friends. The only way we could grow is when you're by word of mouth sharing with us. We don't do too much marketing. We have some out there and we try to put stuff out there in social media and maybe sharing with a friend is sharing one of our LinkedIn posts or one of our Facebook posts, but share this. If there's a good chance you have investor friends, please share our episode and our content with others so they can find us as well too. So Gary, thank you very much. Tom, as always, and we'll see you soon, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks all.